Electronics information. For the questions in this section, select the best answer for the question. 51. What does the following figure represent? A. Transistor. B. Capacitor. C. Resistor. D. Switch. 52. What is the frequency of most household electrical systems? A. 60 MHz. B. 60 Hz. C. 110 Hz. D. 220 Hz. 53. Which equation should you use to find resistance in a circuit? A. R equals E slash I. B. R equals I slash E. C. R equals E times I. D. R equals I times Z. 54. Your outdoor landscaping lights are all connected to the same set of wires. One of them has burned out, but the rest of the lights are still on. How are your lights connected? A. Serial. B. Parallel. C. Serial parallel. D. Parallel serial. 55. You have a 3-strand, 110-volt, 12-gauge Romex cable. Which wire is hot? A. White. B. Black. C. Bare. D. Green. 56. Which of these materials is not a good conductor of electricity? A. Glass. B. Aluminum. C. Tin. D. Copper. 57. What is a dielectric? A. A magnet created by an electrical charge. B. Materials through which an electrical charge cannot easily travel. C. Materials through which an electrical charge can easily travel. D. The non-conducting material between the plates of a capacitor. 58. What is voltage? A. The amount of power consumption. B. The rate of the flow of electrons through a circuit. C. The magnetic flow of a circuit. D. The energy or pressure that makes the stream of electrons flow through a conductive material. 59. What is the current of the circuit in the figure that follows? 110 V. A. 2 ohms. B. 6 V. C. 5 amps. D. 2 amps. 60. What kind of connection is indicated when all the positive terminals of a set of components are connected together, and all the negative terminals are connected together? A. Serial parallel. B. Parallel. C. Parallel serial. D. Serial. Mechanical comprehension. Using the knowledge that you gained from Chapter 7, Mechanical Comprehension, choose one answer. 61. What is work? A. The potential for exertion. B. The movement of an object by a force. C. The rate of motion. D. The force multiplying ability of a machine. 62. If you lift a 50 pounds box 3 feet from the floor of a loading bay, how much work have you done? A. 25 feet lb. B. 50 feet lb. C. 100 feet lb. D. 150 feet lb. 63. If a machine uses 70 pounds of effort to lift a 140 pounds box, what is the mechanical advantage of the machine? A. 4. B. 1. C. 2. D. 70. 64. What is the efficiency of a 6 HP power winch that has a power input of 8 HP? A. 75% efficiency. B. 50% efficiency. C. 130% efficiency. D. 48% efficiency. 65. In the figure that follows, what is the effort needed to balance the bell crank? 4. A. 60 pounds. B. 100 pounds. C. 6 pounds. D. 120 pounds. 66. Velocity and momentum are examples of what type of quantity? A. Scalar quantity. B. Vector quantity. C. Resultant. D. Tensor. 67. What type of machine is a pair of vice grips? A. Simple machine. B. Pliers. C. Compound machine. D. Wrench. 68. How much effort will it take to lift the load in the situation depicted in the figure that follows? 50 pounds. A. 180 pounds. B. 80 pounds. C. 13 pounds. D. 480 pounds. 69. A 300 pounds barrel is rolled up a 10 feet plank to a platform, whose vertical height above the ground is 4 feet disregarding friction. What effort is required to move the barrel? A. 2 pounds. B. 750 pounds. C. 300 pounds. D. 120 pounds. 70. What is the power input of a 15 HP engine that is operating at 95% efficiency? A. 16 HP. B. 15.79 HP. C. 1.58 HP. D. 14 HP. Automotive information. Select the best answer for each question. 71. What tool would you use to remove lug nuts? A. Air impact wrench. B. Socket wrench. C. Hydraulic press. D. Adjustable wrench. 72. The transaxle is part of what system? A. Engine system. B. Drivetrain system. C. Braking system. D. Electrical system. 73. What equipment can you clean with a hot tank cleaner? A. Carburetors. B. Aluminum engine parts. C. Engine blocks. D. Brass automotive parts. 74. What type of fluid do you put in an engine? A. Transmission fluid. B. Bearing grease. C. 10W30 motor oil. D. Ethylene glycol. 75. What type of measuring tool would you use to measure a spark plug gap? A. Micrometer. B. Small hole gauge. C. Caliper. D. Feeler gauge. 76. What type of combustion does a diesel engine use? A. Compression. B. Ignition. C. External. D. Exhaust. 77. Which automotive component transfers the motion of the pistons to the crankshaft? A. Connecting rods. B. Overhead camshaft. C. Journals. D. Valve lifter. 78. What function does a two-stroke cycle engine perform on the first stroke? A. Compression and exhaust. B. Fuel intake and combustion. C. Fuel intake and compression. D. Combustion and exhaust. 79. How many degrees does the crankshaft turn to complete one stroke? A. 90 degrees. B. 270 degrees. C. 360 degrees. D. 180 degrees. 80. What type of engine does not use reciprocating motion? A. Rotary engine. B. Piston engine. C. Diesel engine. D. Two-stroke cycle engine. Shop information. 81. Which drill bit should you select to put a taper on a pre-drilled hole? A. Forstner bit. B. Spade bit. C. Reamer bit. D. Auger bit. 82. What is the strongest method of permanently joining two pieces of like metal? A. Brazing. B. Welding. C. Soldering. D. Crimping. 83. Which tool should you select for gripping a small object inside a tight space? A. Slip joint pliers. B. Bench vise. C. C-clamp. D. Needle nose pliers. 84. In the soldering process, which of the following is not a use for flux? A. Tinning. B. Creating an electrical arc. C. Preventing oxide formation. D. Breaking down the solder's surface tension. 85. The filler rod used in brazing is made from which material? A. Tin. B. Lead. C. Copper. D. Brass. 86. Which machine tool is used for turning? A. Lathe. B. Bench grinder. C. Milling machine. D. Drill press. 87. What is the shop planning document that contains detailed technical drawings showing dimension information called? A. Bill of materials. B. Layout. C. Blueprint. D. Schematic. 88. Which measuring tool provides the greatest degree of precision in measuring the thickness or outer dimension of an object? A. Micrometer. B. Level. C. Carpenter's square. D. Steel rule. 89. Identify the backsaw from among the following figures. A. '90. Which of the following figures shows a chisel? A. B. C. D. Assembling objects.